Now that we've been through some of the preparation, I'm now going to go into the AmiBroker system template that I use to build trading systems. I've included this in the resources for you to download. If you're new to AmiBroker, you might find some of this a little overwhelming, but you should be able to pick it up with time. It's worth spending some time going over the code and getting an understanding of all the functions and statements. And I really recommend looking through the AmiBroker help files and also the AmiBroker books by Howard Bandy. So I've tried to just limit this lecture to the basics of the template, and feel free to use this template to build your own trading systems. So let's get straight into it. Here's the template that I've loaded up into AmiBroker. The first thing I should say is that everything written in green is explanation, and it's been commented out so that it's completely ignored by the backtest engine, so it doesn't have any effect on the speed of a backtest, for example. So the template has been set up to allow easy customization and also easy switching between two types of test: a portfolio test or an all trades test. Whereas a portfolio test is a realistic playback of how a trading system would perform over time, an all trades test can be used to run individual back tests without any time constraints. So this type of test is good for exhaustive research, but not so good for showing realistic trading conditions. For the most part, we're going to be running portfolio tests because these give an accurate portrayal of how our system would perform in real time. Underneath the disclaimer here, I've written out some symbols for the various premium data watch lists. So if you have Norgate Premium, you can use these symbols to reference the various historical watch lists. For example, if you wanted to test the S&P 500 universe, you would use the symbol $SPX. So into the first line of proper code, and we just use the set formula name function here to give the code a name so that we can easily keep track of it when looking through the AmiBroker Report Explorer. And I've called this section the controls section of the template. This is just designed so that we can quickly make alterations from the top down without having to make too many adjustments in the code itself. Instead of writing a heap of code, we can just change it here. For example, by entering 1 or 0 here. So by setting portfolio to 1, we will be telling AmiBroker here to run a portfolio test, and by setting it to 0, we're going to be telling AmiBroker to run an all trades test. For the most part, we will be running portfolio tests, but all trades tests are good for doing initial research. So the controls section here is basically turning things on and off further down in the script. So for example, we have set the entry timing statement to 0, and we can call that later on in the code. So when entry timing equals 0, we're going to enter on the close. Otherwise, we're going to enter at the average price. But of course, all these values can be changed. So you could change that to the open price, the close, the average price, or whatever. Position quantity is a custom-made statement that refers to the total number of positions we're going to allocate to our portfolio. Margin is set at 100, which actually means zero margin in AmiBroker, because we're going to be using cash accounts most of the time with no margin and no leverage. And then this is our position sizing formula, which is essentially the number of positions multiplied by our account margin. So at this point, this is set up to be an equal weighted 10 position portfolio. So in essence, this is giving each trade a position size of 10%. If you were to change the quantity to 5, then we'd be splitting our money 5 ways, so position size in that case would be 20%. So into the backtest parameters, and I've created the minimum volume criteria, and I've set that to 100,000 shares. And the reason I've multiplied it is just to make it a little easier to read rather than looking at a line of zeros. The next line has been created to calculate the unadjusted volume, and this has been created in order to deal with the adjusted data that we're using. Essentially, when a stock undergoes a stock split, the price and the volume both get adjusted. So for example, if there's a 2-to-1 stock split, the stock price is halved and the volume doubles. However, in order to create accurate trading systems, we need to know what the real price was at the time of trading, and we also need to know the real volume, not the adjusted values. If we don't know those values, we open ourselves up to a future leak. For example, we might believe a small cap stock has more volume and is therefore more liquid than it really was at the time. And that can really affect our trading results. Right underneath the volume criteria, we have position score, which is AmiBroker's built-in ranking function. So when we have more than one trading signal, AmiBroker will use position score to choose which signal to take first. And here we are using the RSI indicator. So when AmiBroker encounters more than one trading signal, it's going to take the signal with the highest RSI 14 value first. And of course, you can change this to anything you like. You can use any type of indicator and be as creative as you like. Next, I've put in some examples of a few indicators, and these usually come in handy for one thing or another, which you can use to get started with. And then under that, we get into the main part of the code. So this first line sets our initial starting capital. And we're using an if function here to control how much money we're going to start with. So if we specified above that this is a portfolio test, we're going to be starting with 10k. Otherwise, if it's an all trades test, we're going to be using $1 million. An all trades test is going to run lots of different trades without any restrictions. So we don't care too much about making the test realistic, as we're really just researching for an edge. So for an all trades test, we'll need a large capital base to capture all of the positions that we're going to take. Anyway, we're going to be using this code more for portfolio tests at the moment. The next line sets commission mode to free, which means a dollar amount per share. And we've set this commission to 1 cent per share when running the portfolio test, which is just about what you pay when you trade through interactive brokers. The maximum open positions function is set here at position quantity if running a portfolio test, which we set up earlier as 10 positions. And for an all trades test, it's set at 2500, and this is to cater for all the trades that will be run with that particular test. I think the next few lines are fairly self-explanatory. This line here sets the trade delays so that we can move our entry or exit trades by a set number of bars. And these are set up higher in the controls. If we want to delay our entry by 1 bar, we can enter it here, and if we want to delay our sell by 1 bar, we can do that as well. We can also do that for short and cover. The set position size function is then called, and we're basically going to set the position size to a percentage of equity if a portfolio. If it's an all trades test, we're going to be setting the position size to 1 contract or 1 share, a fixed amount. Moving into the high level logic section, I've put in this line in order to make sure the backtester always runs. Sometimes you can get an error, for example, if you fail to specify in the analysis window whether you want to run a long or short system, but this line should nullify that. Here I've set the criteria for the buy price and short price, and the sell price and cover price. And this makes sense when you refer back to the controls above. So here we're saying if entry timing is set to 0 above, we're going to trade on the close. Otherwise, we're going to trade on the average price. And this can be changed, so you could set it to the open price, for example. The next section refers to the issues relating to delisted stocks and historical constituents, and I've included 2 methods. One that can be used with Norgate premium data, and the second which should work with any data provider. To understand this, I suggest you read this link provided, but the gist is that we need to find the last bars of a security so that we can identify it as inactive and then do 2 things. First, prevent AmiBroker from entering any positions in a stock that is about to disappear off the exchange, and 2, tell AmiBroker to exit any position just before it gets taken off the exchange. This is necessary because sometimes you can be left with open positions in stocks that are basically delisted and they're not moving anywhere. This issue with having open positions in delisted stocks can affect performance, so it is important to make sure that these stocks are taken care of. The next part of the template is intended to be a suitability filter. Usually, we only want to trade stocks that are sufficiently liquid, and we typically have other requirements that we look for, and these can all be placed in here. So here we're saying we only want to trade stocks that are over $5 in price. And notice how here we're using the previous bar's unadjusted close price, which is held in the open interest field in Norgate Premium. And this is to be sure we have the point in time price, not the adjusted price, so that there can be no future bias in our results. If we don't do this, it's possible that we might buy a stock thinking it has a lower share price than it really did at the time. For example, if you look at a high performing stock, perhaps Apple, and you look back in time, you'll see that it actually the adjusted price makes it look like a penny stock, say in 2001, 2002, but in reality, the stock never traded down at those levels. So we've then set our minimum volume filter. Again, we're using the unadjusted volume that we created earlier. I might set this to 1 million shares, or I might set it lower, depending on my starting capital and what stocks I want to trade. The next line relates to Norgate Premium data again. We need to make sure that the stock we are buying was a member of the historical index at the time that we're buying it. And this line of code does that. If we don't include this statement, we could end up purchasing stocks before or after they were in the index. And this again could lead to misleading results. For example, let's say we only want to buy stocks from the S&P 500 index. If we don't include this extra line of code, it's possible that we could buy stocks before they joined the index. They're in the watch list, but they're not in the index at the time we're buying them. This could cause a type of look-ahead bias, since the stocks that join the index at a later date are going to be the ones that have already gone up. The final line makes sure we don't enter a trade if it's on the last two bars of an inactive security. Again, this is to deal with the issue of having open positions in delisted securities. The next section, which is left in green, is where you can enter your own trading system rules. So you simply uncomment out this section and enter your system buy rules and sell rules. One thing to note is that we've already set the sell condition to always exit on the second last bar of an inactive stock. So those are the main features of the backtesting template. I've also provided some extra examples below about stop losses, plotting buy-sell arrows, and also some code for an exploration. I do hope that this template helps you to get started building your own trading systems. I feel like explaining everything here would take almost another whole course, so if you have any questions or problems, please let me know.